She's still telling me what to do. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Will we roll and tape on that?
There you go. You got a brush?
Yeah. Just a one-finger victory salute.
You don't stand for anything, you don't stand for anything. If you don't stand for something, you don't stand for anything. Fooled me once. Shame on you. It fooled me, we can't get fooled again. In my State of the Union, or my speech to the nation, whatever you want to call it.
Pentagon, the day before 9/11, Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld declared war, not on foreign terrorists.
The adversary is closer to home. It's the Pentagon bureaucracy.
He said money wasted by the military poses a serious threat.
In fact, it could be said that it's a matter of life and death.
Rumsfeld promised change, but the next day, the world changed. And in the rush to fund the war on terrorism, the war on waste seems to have been forgotten.
My 03 budget calls for more than $48 billion in new defense spending.
More money for the Pentagon when its own auditors admit the military cannot account for 25% of what it already spends.
According to some estimates, we cannot track $2.3 trillion in transactions.
$2.3 trillion with a T. That's $8,000 for every man, woman, and child in America. To understand how the Pentagon can lose track of trillions, consider the case of one military accountant who tried to find out what happened to a mere $300 million.
We know it's gone, but we don't know what they spent it on.
Jim Minery, a former Marine turned whistleblower, is risking his job by speaking out for the first time about the millions he noticed were missing from one defense agency's balance sheets. Minery tried to follow the money trail, even crisscrossing the country looking for records.
The director looked at me and he says, "Why do you care about this stuff?" It took me aback, you know. My supervisor asked me why I care about doing a good job. So.
He was reassigned and says officials then covered up the problem by just writing it off.
They got to cover it up. That's where the corruption comes in. They've got to cover up the fact that they can't do the job.
The Pentagon's Inspector General partially substantiated several of Minery's allegations, but could not prove officials tried to manipulate the financial statements. 20 years ago, Pentagon employee Franklin C. Spinney made headlines exposing what he calls the accounting games. He's still there, and although he does not speak for the Pentagon, he believes the problem has gotten worse.
Those numbers are pie in the sky. The books are cooked routinely year after year after year.
Retired Vice Admiral Jack Shanahan commanded the Navy's Second Fleet the first time Donald Rumsfeld served as Defense Secretary.
With good financial oversight, we could find $48 billion in loose change in that building without having to hit the taxpayer.
In the 2.5 minutes since this report began, the Pentagon has spent nearly $2 million, and it may never know where 25% of those tax dollars went. In Los Angeles, I'm Vince Gonzalez for Eye on America.
Never before in history has a steel-framed high-rise building collapsed simply because of fire. On 9/11, by coincidence, 3 such buildings collapsed within 10 to 16 seconds. Almost free fall speed. In other words, if you had dropped a brick from the top of the World Trade Center, it would have taken about that time to hit the ground. If fire could even conceivably bring down steel-framed buildings, but bring them down very slowly, the steel would bend and fall this way and that way. It'd be a very slow process. The pictures that we see are consistent with what is called controlled demolition. When a company fills a building with explosives, times the explosives in just the right way to bring the building straight down into its own footprint. And that's what we see with all 3 buildings.
You have two 110-story office buildings. You don't find a desk. You don't find a chair. You don't find a telephone, a computer. The biggest piece of a telephone I found was half of the keypad, and it was about this big. The building collapsed to dust.
Let us never tolerate outrageous conspiracy theories concerning the attacks of September the 11th. Malicious lies that attempt to shift the blame away from the terrorists themselves, away from the guilty.
Bomb in the building, start clearing out. Sorry, you said there's a bomb? What'd you say? Bomb in the building, start clearing out. Got it.
No second plane. It was a bomb. Bombed in another building, not second plane. That was a bomb. Who said the second plane?
That's what we're told, the second plane.
No,
we saw it on television.
I know everything.
All right. Thanks a lot. This is...
Joining me is Jack Kelly. Now, he is a foreign correspondent, war correspondent, and just came back from Israel. He has some information about these attacks. Jack, what can you tell us happened first in New York?
Apparently what appears to happen was that at the same time two planes hit the building, that the FBI most likely thinks that there was a car or truck packed with explosives underneath the buildings, which also exploded at the same time and brought both of them down.
Now, that's the first time we're hearing that. So two planes and explosives that were in the building, is that correct?
That is the working theory at this point. That is still unconfirmed, but that is what the FBI is going on at this point.
Now, here in Washington, can you tell us what happened with this jet? We believe it's an American Airlines jet that was going from Dulles International Airport to Los Angeles. Can you tell us about that?
At approximately 9:45, the plane hit the side of the building over there. There are confirmed deaths at this point. This is thought to be part of a coordinated attack. This is the first time that U.S. officials will actually say that this is part of a coordinated attack, and I don't think it's exactly over yet.
It is not over yet?
They don't believe it's actually over yet. They're taking precautions. Within the last couple of minutes, the White House has approved sending two aircraft carrier battle groups, one into the Chesapeake Bay, the other outside of the New York City area, to prepare and defend for possible future attacks.
Now, Jack, as these battleships are headed out, does this mean war?
Lawrence Eagleburger, the former Secretary of State, just told us that this is a declaration of war as far as he is concerned. He said this is the biggest attack against the U.S. since Pearl Harbor more than 60 years ago. Osama bin Laden appears to be the #1 suspect at this point, though nobody will go on the record and say this. Only Osama bin Laden has the sophistication to carry off a multiple coordinated attack. I've sat with his people, and they've said that this is something that they would like to do.
As recently as just a month and a half ago or so, isn't that correct, when you sat with Osama bin Laden's people?
In Dubai, and one of them at that point said that they were considering more attacks against the U.S. Also, what's interesting, 3 weeks ago, a U.S. official warned the Taliban through a third person was that should there be any more attacks that the U.S. would respond militarily. At this point now, the Pentagon and CIA and the FBI have identified a possible 100 targets within Afghanistan to possibly strike back.
We are now preparing for war. Is that what I'm understanding?
That